what are you doing? Well, that's it for the garden for this year. It is frozen solid. The cabbages, they'll survive. Like, might be a couple small heads left that we can get out of these. Make some sauerkraut and kimchi, which my wife's been doing from this garden since the spring, basically, whenever there's been a head or two of cabbage ready. And some daikon radishes that just popped up from seed, actually, in various spots in the garden. She just made up a couple of batches, so we've been steady having kimchi and sauerkraut all season long. Like I said, this is pretty well it. Maybe one more harvest. So most of the trees you see here in this raised bed garden, which was a vegetable garden for the last 5 years, if you look at that transformation, it's incredible what transformation there has been since 2020. Spring 2020 is when I started this garden, and it was pretty dense forest, like from this fence basically over. It was some trees that had fallen down naturally, and it was so impenetrable you couldn't walk into it. So I cleaned those up. Just over time, it's been different iterations of the garden. Culture mound across the back, like a major one. All these beds were not raised like this, but they were pretty much in the same spot, and I just laid down rotten logs and then gathered soil and just kept filling them with organic material and soil. Eventually they became pretty rich, and then we changed our diet and decided to eat mostly meat and fruit, so we transformed this vegetable garden into a fruit garden, essentially a fruit orchard. So we've got apples, plums. Down there we've got what I originally had as my permaculture section, or food forest section. That's been there the longest. All these trees, for example, in the raised beds we just planted last spring, or this spring, 2025 spring. But those down there started as early as, I think, 2021, and then some maybe in 2022. Problem with that section of the garden is it actually starts sloping pretty steeply to the northwest, so the orientation is not great for maximum sunlight exposure. But not only the orientation, but also the forest is too close on that side. So once the sun gets beyond, I don't know what time, like in the afternoon, that starts to get shaded, which is bad enough. But also the trees are stealing the nutrients and the moisture, the water, from all the orchard plants, because all these hardwood trees have wide roots, and they're coming into the orchard or into that food forest section, and they're stealing, like I said, all the nutrients and the moisture. So I planned this year, and I guess I'll do it for the spring, cutting that forest back to those tall pines right there, which gives me another 50 feet of open space before the forest starts, which will solve that problem with the root stealing all the nutrients. But it also obviously will give more sunlight to that garden till later in the afternoon, but also give me an opportunity just to plant some more fruit shrubs basically along that forest edge. So I'll move the sea buckthorn line down there further, probably elderberry on the sides, maybe gooseberry, although I don't like doing that with the pines there. What else? Probably get some blueberries to grow along there. Like I said, sea buckthorn, and then I have my hazelnuts. I still have some hazelnuts in pots. Got a bunch of pots that I always buy every spring or late winter. I always get excited about the growing season, and I order bare root plants and get them delivered, including apple trees. A lot of these fruit trees start off like that. Not these new ones, but all the other ones here and in the food plot and around the cabin garden there. But also a bunch of perennial fruits and vegetables and medicinal plants. So they're in pots over here and down here, including, like I said, chestnuts and hazelnut. So I can plant a new row of hazelnuts down closer to that forest edge and not be too concerned that they're not going to be super productive compared to the open area fruit and nut trees and bushes. What else? I started saying apples, plums, peaches, cherries, sour cherries, the sweet and sour cherries, multiple varieties. Nectarines are doing pretty well. They actually produced last year and not this year because we over pruned last year. Pears, 2 pear tree there. Pawpaws. Cherry nectarine, pawpaw. Plums, Canada plum, American plum, and some like Japanese plums. Yeah, several different cherries. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Then there's all the fruit bushes, like tons of blueberries, hascaps, elderberry, some bush cherries, blackberries, raspberries. Wild raspberries and cultivated thornless raspberries right here. Grapes now at every trellis or arbor. Currants, yeah, just a variety of different berries. So anyway, that's what we're focused on. But focus this coming year, so over this winter, preparing all the trees, getting them ready for dormancy, getting them ready to winter. Is what all these collars are for. We've had a bad vole problem on and off over the last couple of years. Cali, don't chase the chickens. And they've girdled several of the trees, of the fruit trees, which kills them completely. Once you strip off all the cambium layer all the way around, there's no way for nutrients, water, moisture to travel up and down the stem or the trunk. So we lost several. So these collars are better. They protect the voles, or protect the bark from the voles. And the snow level hopefully doesn't get above that, and if it does, typically the voles are down at the level between the ground, especially the mulch layer and the bottom of the snow, where there's some warmth from the ground there for them still. So that's that, and then a little bit of pruning still to do. I think I might wait. Yeah, I'll wait a couple more weeks probably to do the dormant fruit tree pruning. These ones here don't really need it because we just bought them last year, and they haven't put any new growth really on there. We're just establishing roots. As the saying goes, first year they sleep, second year they creep, and third year they leap. So what we're hoping is that they put down some good roots this year in this good rich soil in these raised beds, and then next year they'll start putting on growth, and that's when we'll have to prune, maybe even some summer pruning to maintain the keep the vigor down so they don't grow big. So just keep cutting them at lower level while they're growing in the summer. I like to do a summer solstice pruning, like June 20th, June 21st. and then a winter pruning for shape. But what happens when you prune in the winter? All that energy, say I cut it right there, all the energy from those bigger roots then are sending out all this energy into the new growth areas. These new buds would end up sending out tons of growth up top, so you end up creating more vigor by winter pruning. So we don't want to do too much of that. There's some trees over here in the front that are, what do we have, plum, nectarine, a few plums, nectarine, and some apples. The nectarines have a lot of water shoots. It's just like the straight vertical stems that come up, or branches that come up in the middle. They need to all come off because they don't do anything for the tree. They don't produce any fruit, and they're pretty much shaded in the middle, so they create more shading, less airflow, which can cause some disease problems. And then they also end up getting shaded out from these outer leaves, so they don't really do anything to provide energy to the tree. So cut all those off, keep this nice and wide and open for good airflow. So like I said, the nectarines. But again, I did a little bit of pruning a week or two ago, but I'm going to wait another couple of weeks for probably even snow cover, but consistent temperatures below freezing, and then do that pruning. So today, just take some burlap and wrap up some of the smaller shrubs that are vulnerable this year because they're new. And then that's it. We collect this wood. That huge oak tree we cut down a couple of years ago, right behind, I had to take it down before I built the chicken coop because it was dying and it was leaning in this direction, so it would have wiped out the chicken coop eventually. So we pulled it down into the bush, cut it down. It's big, and I've got those logs sitting beside the lumber mill, the sawmill. They're so heavy that the tractor has a hard time picking them up, and putting them onto the mill is unstable because they don't have that mill on a good solid base yet. Need to build that next year, like some concrete pillars probably, and then get a roof put over top of it. So I've got those logs sitting there for another year, but I did cut some of them. I did mill some. So I'm going to pull those pieces of wood out, which are now, what, a year and a half old. I've been cut to that size for over a year, so they should be well air dried by now. I'll move those into the workshop, let them dry out a little bit more, and then I think make the table, those bedside tables out of that, and maybe the big slab. I've got to show you the stump. It's like that. I can slice a couple of cookies off that and make that the tabletops for those bedside tables, the nightstands. So I'm going to work on that today too. Are there squirrels in here, Tyler? What do we have? Tracks right here. You can't do that. Can't get in there to get them, okay? You're not going to be able to get that squirrel. Just leave that one. I'll find another one.